Can you imagine hearing that the foods that we might be giving our children might be the cause of the tantrums and meltdowns that they have whenever we're giving them vegetables? Our children's mental and emotional health is greatly impacted by the amount of vegetables that they eat. But yet, about 31% of Canadian 12 to 17-year-old girls don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. And more than half of American children do not even consume one serving of vegetable a day. Now, I know that there are many reasons for that. It could be that there are food sensitivities or availability of foods. But in this video, I'm going to go over cooking meals that can satisfy our entire family, the costs associated with all of this, how we can make this work for our children, and how we can help our children to avoid all these tantrums and meltdowns. But first, you might be wondering, what if my child refuses to eat? Because that is a reality for a lot of families out there. Now, there's gonna be a few things that I'm gonna mention here. Bear with me, okay? First, our children, it's totally normal if they like or don't like certain items. Just like you don't like everything. So it's okay if your children don't like everything. However, this is where a little bit of tough love is gonna come into play. At the end of the day, you're mom. You're the parent. They're the child. You are the one that's responsible to make sure that your children have what they need. So think about it. If your child is gonna run into the middle of the street, you're gonna tell them to stop. Even if they're like, I wanna run into the middle of the street. You're going to tell them to stop because you know better. You know what's better for them. So this is the exact same thing as the food that they're eating, the nutrition that they have. You are the one that's responsible to make sure that they're eating healthy food. Even if your child, says they don't like something, you have a conversation with them, you realize, okay, is it a texture? Is it a taste? Is it a flavor? Whatever the case might be. Once you speak with your child, if you realize that it's just something that, they just don't want to eat it for no absolute reason, but you know that this is something that's going to be beneficial for them, well, then you're going to give it to them. But I'm going to give you some tips in this video on how you give it to them. Because if you just put it on the plate, it's just not happening. You're going to end up screaming. They're going to end up screaming. It's just going to be chaos all around. So there is definitely a way that you can still give your children what they might not necessarily like, but is going to be beneficial for them. I always say it's good to give them what their body needs before you give them what their body wants. So I know we've seen all those shows where mom is like, okay, here's what supper is. And the child's like, oh, I don't want that. And they're like, okay, well, here's another supper. We don't do that in this household. And hopefully you do not do the same thing as well. You do not have to cook multiple meals just to satisfy the different palates that are in your house. There are definitely things that you can make. So you can make a different base to go with the meal, but the core of your meal should be the same. And everyone is going to have about the same thing, just in different proportions. So for example, in our household, my son does not like sweet potato. It is not his favorite. However, I do know that sweet potato is something that's really good for him. So whenever I make it, I do make sure that it's with a protein that he really likes. And that way he has a protein that he really likes and he has a vegetable that he really likes. So even if he has a sweet potato, it might not be his favorite, but there's still two things on the plate that balances things out. Also, if it's just in the way that you prepare it, maybe learn how to prepare something differently. Let's say if you have a child like me that does not like to eat cooked carrots. The only way I eat cooked carrots is in certain soups. Other than that, if you're just steaming the carrots or whatever, no, I want no part in it. It tastes completely different. However, I love raw carrots. Now, if this was a child where they're like, oh, cooked carrots, no, I don't want it, and you just stop giving them carrots, you would never know that they actually like it raw. It's something with the taste. Once it gets warm, it changes the taste of the vegetable. So this is why you need to be able to experiment with your children, but not make multiple different meals. So what you can do is with one of your meals, if you decide to give carrots, maybe you can have some carrots that you didn't cook for one child, and then you have some carrots that you did cook for everybody else. Or you can decide that everybody's going to have raw carrots for that meal. It's really about making sure that you prepare the same meal for everybody and that you're not in the kitchen for hours and hours and hours on end because one person likes this, the other person likes that, the other person likes that. we're not doing all that. And then in this day and age, things are so expensive. You go to the grocery store and you're like, did you see that video where the lady's at the grocery store and I swear it sounds like she's giving birth or something, and the teller behind is like, okay, I'm about to pass the cheese for the charcuterie board, and she's like holding her breath? Yes, I completely understand. Groceries are expensive right now. But it doesn't mean that giving your children vegetables is going to be expensive. There are a lot of different options that you can have out there. If you're going to buy vegetables that are in season, that's going to be a lot less expensive than if you decide to buy asparagus when it's not in season. You can also decide to purchase vegetables that are in cans or frozen. Now, one thing that I mentioned in a previous video is that frozen and canned vegetables can be healthy because normally they pick these vegetables when they're at their peak ripeness, and then they either flash freeze it or they preserve it into cans. So this is why buying frozen and buying canned vegetables can be a good lifesaver if ever you're like, you know what, I don't have a lot of money this week, but I still want to provide my children with some vegetables. Now, I did give some tips on how you can make sure that your canned vegetables and your frozen vegetables are healthy for you. If you want to check it out, you could check it out in this video here. But ultimately, you just want to make sure that what you're giving them is just the vegetable, not preservatives, no added sugars, no added salt, no added nothing. And then you season it yourself based on your child's preferences. Now, I know that whenever you look at these types of videos, you're like, okay, that works for you, that's great, but what about my child? Now, this is where I'm going to have to throw the question back to you, because as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you're gonna have a conversation with your child about their preferences. If they tell you, I don't like X, so let's say with my daughter, there's sometimes the way that I make Brussels sprouts, she doesn't really like it. Other times she loves it. Don't ask me why. But whenever she mentioned that she didn't like it, I was like, what is it about it that you don't like? Because this is not the first time that you've had Brussels sprouts and you've liked it before. And it was all about the seasoning. There was something with the seasoning that I made that time that she didn't like. And then the next time she ate it because I switched up the seasoning. So it's really about having that communication with your children to figure out what is it that they don't like, why don't they like it? Is it something that you did when you were cooking it or preparing it that maybe changed the flavor profile a little bit? And you can see how you can tweak it. So this is a way that you can see, is this going to work for your child? You need to have that conversation with them. But ultimately, you need to remember that you are the mom, you are the parent, and you're the one that decides what exactly they're going to eat. So if they tell you, I just don't like it, well, that's not a valid reason. Just not liking something is not a valid reason. And then you're going to tell them, okay, well, this is why mommy's giving it to you. This is what it's doing for you. And since we can't really come to a conclusion on why exactly you don't like this, I'll give it to you, but we'll try out different ways. Can you have 2 bites of it in this way? Mommy will try to see, can I cook it differently so that you would actually enjoy it more? But it's gonna be trial and error. It's gonna take a few times of you trying the different vegetable or even the same vegetable cooked differently for your children, because they're going to be able to identify what is it exactly that they don't like. So this part is really going to be trial and error. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some patience. But at the end of the day, it's totally worth it, because then your children are going to be able to have the nutrients and the vitamins and the fiber and everything that is included in these vegetables. Now we're going to flip some things around, and I'm going to give you some tips on how you can incorporate more vegetables for your children and avoid the meltdowns that might happen. So once you're done with your school day and your children are a little snackish, don't wait until supper time to then give them their food and put unknown vegetables on their plate. Have like a little grazing plate that they can have as snacks. If your children are hungry, they're gonna snack on it. So instead of having, like fruit roll-ups or whatever other high sugar snacks that can be on their plate, you're gonna put out some baby carrots, some cucumbers, sugar snap peas, and these are different vegetables that they can easily grab and pop into their mouth and snack on. You're gonna realize they're gonna gravitate towards these vegetables more likely than if there was absolutely nothing and you just gave them the vegetable on their supper plate. Another tip is if you have a child that really does not like a certain vegetable, but they have a favorite protein and a favorite carb, then do as I mentioned in the video earlier. You could decide to put their favorite carb and their favorite protein on that plate with that vegetable that they might not really like that much. And that way they know that, okay, well, I don't like this, but I love this. And what you can do, like what I do with my daughter, sometimes she doesn't really like the way that I prepare something. So she'll put it aside and I could see it. She leaves it to the end and I tell her, eat it with the food that you really like, or eat it first. That way the last taste that you have in your mouth is something that you really, really enjoy. You can have them choose between two different vegetables. Children love to make decisions. So if you give them two different choices, like you can tell them, do you want broccoli or do you want cauliflower today? Or do you want baby carrots or do you want cucumbers? Or do you want tomatoes or do you want Brussels sprouts? Give them two options that you have in the fridge, because if you give them an option that you don't have, then you got to go to the store. We ain't got time for that. We're busy, right? So make sure that it's two options that you have in the fridge that's not going to take like 5 minutes to cook or 2 hours to cook, because then you're not going to like that second option. But give them two options that they can choose to have with their supper. By them deciding on what they're going to have for supper, it gives them that little sense of like ownership of, ooh, I had impact in what we're eating today, so then they're gonna wanna eat it. So if you've been getting value from this video so far, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and then let me know in the comments, what are the two vegetable options that you're gonna give your children for supper tonight? You can make mealtime fun and interactive. You can bring them into the kitchen with you, have them prepare the food with you, or if you even thought about it before, when you go to the grocery store, have them come with you. I remember I did this with my son. We went to the grocery store and I was like, choose a vegetable that we're gonna try this week. It has to be a new vegetable. And he chose white zucchini. We never had white zucchini before that. We usually had the green zucchini. So I was like, okay, it's similar, but whatever, it's something new. Let's try it out. So we purchased it, and I cannot tell you how many times a child asked me, are we having the zucchini today? Are we having the zucchini today? Before I actually made it. And when we made it, he was super excited to have it because he's the one that chose it. So this is why it's really good to get the children involved, because you can have them choose the vegetable at the grocery store, or you can have them prepare it in the household. So that way they're like, oh my gosh, I had my hand in this. Let me enjoy this. Fruits of my labor kind of thing. Now, I don't know about you, but I know that a lot of children love to have a dip or some kind of dressing. So if you decide that you want to make a healthy ranch, or you want to make a guacamole or some hummus or some type of dressing, or if you purchase the dressing in the store, just make sure you look at the ingredients list, because I don't want you to buy anything that has a whole bunch of sugar. That's just dessert, that's liquid. It's not a salad dressing anymore. So make sure that you look at the ingredients if you do decide to purchase it. But give them a dip, give them a dressing, and that way they'll be able to dip their vegetable in it and make this amazing dip. It's so good. I can't even call it a dip because it's not even liquid, but it's a dip. It's cottage cheese and feta cheese. You blend that together. You put a little bit of black pepper in it, not much because you don't want it too spicy if it's for your children. And you can also put a little bit of lime juice in it. It tastes amazing. It's so thick. It also has a lot of protein because it has a cottage cheese in it. And then they could take their baby carrots, their sugar snap peas, their cucumbers, whatever, the sliced bell peppers, and they could dip it inside, and it just tastes so good. And if they're going to need a dip to have their vegetable, I'm totally fine with that. Now, my mom used to say, monkey see, monkey do. I don't know, is that just a Caribbean thing? Let me know if you've heard that expression before. But really it boils down to be a veggie role model. If your children see you not eating vegetables at all, what makes you think that they're going to eat it, right? So if they see you eating it, they're going to be a lot more prone or a lot more susceptible to actually eat the vegetables. So making sure that you have vegetables as well is going to help your children realize, mommy's eating this, so maybe I should eat it too. Now, we all know that children love to pick on our plates, right? Especially when they're really young. This is a perfect opportunity to let them pick on your plate when they're really young. Make sure you have a whole bunch of vegetables on there and they're just gonna be like, oh, this is mommy's, I'm gonna have some. Now, another way that you can incorporate some vegetables into your children's food is by sneaking it in. And if you want, there's a guide in the description box, or you can go to www.mommynmewellness.com/4, or you can scan this QR code and you can get a free guide that has 5 recipes that sneaks veggies into their foods. There are different things like ice cream, there's a pizza, there's grilled cheese. There's so many different ways that you can sneak vegetables in for your children, and they might not even realize it. Now, obviously, we want to make sure that they're actually eating their vegetables, that they know what they're eating, so that they have that good food relationship. However, there are some times where you're just going to have to sneak it in, or even not sneak. You tell them that it's in it, but you still want to provide them foods that have vegetables, but it doesn't change the flavor profile. So make sure that you download that recipe guide, because in there, you're going to find so many recipes that you can use today or tomorrow, because you might have to buy the things. So these tips and techniques are gonna help you and your family, and they're gonna help your household just eat healthier. But you might have some thoughts, habits, or misconceptions, no fault of your own, that you don't even realize towards vegetables, because I know I had some. So you're gonna wanna check out this video here, because this is where I'm going to go over the common misconceptions that we might have about vegetables, how they impact our children, and how we can revert them. Because I know that some of these thoughts I had, and it was impacting the way that I was feeding my children. So you might be doing this without even realizing that you're doing the same thing. So make sure that you check out this video so that you can avoid the mistakes that I made and that you might be making without even realizing it.